Hello, welcome to the far north of Scotland. Welcome to the far north forest garden. Now today I'm going to talk a little bit about willows. Somewhat controversial, maybe in some ways. But I suppose I need to mention, before I go any further, that in the far north of Scotland, certainly in Caithness and certainly where we are, the things that we have to grow may be very different from where you are in the world, if you're in England or lower parts of Scotland, Wales, or other parts of the world, United States. I understand some of the things that we suggest may not be to your liking. It is hard actually to tell, unless you comment on anything specific, if you put a dislike for the video, whether it's the subject matter or the conclusion I bring out is what you dislike, whether it's me you dislike. I seem to be meandering now around talking about the elder tree. The video itself, some of the things I'm talking about are complete rubbish. That being said, let's talk about willow and the benefits that I think we have here, but also some of the problems, because in many ways they are a bit of a quick fix. So behind me, this is a grey willow, so it's a more native variety to this area. Slower growing, but probably better in terms of supporting pollinators. The faster growing willow, the viminalis and things like that, also have the catkins, the flowers early on, so they also support local wildlife. Bees, etc. So, there are benefits as well to having those sort of willows around. And let me just walk you across the land a little bit, and we'll just remember I only walk quite slowly, so it's a slow walk. Let's just have a quick look around. So that's a eucalyptus there, so probably not a variety that I might naturally recommend for the far north of Scotland. That's actually a river gum. Just here, silver birch. So over there you can see, this is the north side that you're looking at, north side of our croft, our forest garden, and you can see those are fast growing willows over there, and those are here northeast fast growing willows. So these are viminalis or varieties like that have been put in here. We've also grown some pine and spruce trees, again to give us some much needed protection from probably the coldest and worst winds. We have a lot of wind that comes from the west on the other side of our croft house. So if you are planting willows, of course, you don't want to be planting them close to your house, so you need to have them a good 50 feet away from the house, so that might count you out altogether. Although there are slower growing varieties, maybe the sort of weeping willow, there's a weeping willow I think called Kilmarnock, which is a dwarf weeping willow, so that might be something you could grow. There are also varieties up here in Caithness, the eared willow, which doesn't grow to a great size, so that one is probably a better variety if you don't want to go mad with some of these larger varieties. We also grow, you can perhaps see it just here, let me just show you. This is a golden and yellow variety that we're growing in this willow spiral. So I hope you can see that. Hard to tell the spiral at this early stage, but we sort of grew it this year in recognition of a character that I was reading about, a guy called Richard St. Barbe Baker. So he was around in the 1920s and slightly before and a lot more afterwards. And it's supposed to be recognised as one of the guys responsible for planting more trees than anybody else, because of the societies that he created, and many of the trees being one of the early ones, which he started off in Kenya, I believe. And he was actually talking about planting trees to stop soil erosion long before anybody else was, and he characterised trees as being the skin of the earth. Anyway, just talking about, that's why we planted these willows, because I was just saying Barbe Baker, when he was 4 years of age, he planted 2 willows to create a little willow arch. And from that, because he saw them growing and the leaves coming on them, it inspired him. And then he got even more inspiration walking through forests. So maybe that's an idea for your children, or maybe yourselves, just to get some inspiration if you find growing anything difficult. Willows always help out. So what else can I say about willows? Well, we grew the fast-growing variety here because slower-growing variety like the grey or the smaller ones like the eared willow, it just weren't going to give us the coverage that we needed for a starter forest garden. We planted them much closer together, so we maybe planted 2 or 3 every metre rather than every metre. They are very, very flexible in the wind. So some of these taller varieties, say viminalis, amongst them will almost bend backwards in the wind. They will give you really good wind coverage. But again, they can have problems in that they can stop the flow of water underground. Their root systems are quite shallow, so they may run for maybe 2 or 3 times the size of the tree that you can see underground, but actually in quite a shallow way. For us, they really help in the springtime because the water table gets quite high here, so it's hard to drain it away. We have ditches that we try to drain the water away, but the land is so level and so flat, you end up just moving it around. But the willows, suck up the water early on and stop the water rotting. You have fruit trees and shrubs and things like that, so they do enable our forest garden to function. Of course, there are different things that you might want to use willows for. Some of these native varieties, like the grey willow, may not be particularly good for weaving, but the golden variety, such as is here, is probably a better variety if you want to weave. It's quite vigorous, and maybe not as vigorous as the bigger ones. I mean, things like viminalis, they grow up to 2 metres, 9 or 10 feet a year. But if you want to grow things like the yellow or maybe the purple varieties, you can grow those and probably just coppice them and just keep them under some sort of control. But again, keep them a little way away from your house, unless you're going to grow those dwarf varieties like Kilmarnock or weeping willow. Remember the weeping willows used to be in Melton Mowbray, where I come from, years ago, and getting some real solace and peace just sitting underneath them. Just at break times or dinner times at school, just relaxing underneath the willow trees. Beautiful memories. So some of these hedges that we have in the centre of the forest garden, we have things you can see here. This is field maple, and that's some lovely hedge. It makes a lovely tree as well. My favourite tree. If you're talking about willow, we have golden willow in here. So I say this is a bit vigorous, but we do tend to cut it back every year. And of course you can use it for weaving. It's fairly prized, I think, as a weaving variety. And this is a part of the garden which we create one of those little rooms for, to protect them from the wind, which comes from all areas. 360 degrees, where you can get foul, severe speed of wind. So, we have to create little rooms within the food forest. And we did that initially. And these trees here, the apple tree and the plum trees back there, and a pear tree. And as you can see there, they're doing pretty well. In fact, this apple tree is doing really, really well. See, got plenty of flowers on there. So that's willows. Not sure I want to say any more about them. I say if you have got any comments yourself or experiences yourself with willows, and you've had problems with them, I understand if you wouldn't want to keep any of the faster growing varieties. And in fact, there are some things that we're going to have to do eventually to change where we have some of those trees. We actually planted them too close, I think, to our septic tank. But there's no problem at the moment. Might get some problems with that in the future. So that's another thing to think about. Even if you don't have it close to your house, don't have it close to your septic tank. And there is also some thought about the amount of fall you get, leaf fall or branches breaking up and so on. For me, that's good. We need nourishment to the soil of any type. The soil is dreadful, sort of acidic, and a lot of that has been sorted out by the older trees that we have up here. But something else that we've done, you might be able to see there in the background, create dead hedges. So it could be easy maybe for us to just churn those bits of branch up and make them into a wood chip path or something like that. But I prefer using them for creating dead hedges because that creates habitat for bird species and other types of creatures. Makes my fencing look a lot better with a dead hedge in front of it. And also, it's something you can sort of continually add to. We had quite a bad winter this year and quite a lot of wind. We get a lot of wind anyway, but it was excessive this year, so we did get quite a few branches come off, not just from the willows, but from alders and elm and sycamore and even some of the pines. So you can cut that down and use that in something like this dead hedge. We follow this path here created by these willows. Actually, there's a willow. So, and the idea of this spiral, actually, by the way, is to create a forest garden spiral. We might manipulate it eventually, but it's something we're sort of playing with, the idea of spirals. But so if you're making a dead hedge, actually looking at it more closely, it doesn't look quite as tidy as I might like it to. But you can use your branches for your posts. You can make them as wide as you like. I think these are only about, half a metre less than that wide. Use your branches to knock in the ground, and then you tend to put the smaller branches at the bottom and the large ones at the top to hold them down. And it creates an alternative to, as I said, in this case, my poor fencing. That fencing, by the way, is to keep the horses in areas that we would prefer them to be. In years past, we've had horses and goats, particularly, that have gone into areas that we'd rather not and have lost quite a few trees. But we love them anyway. Of course we do. As we love our chickens and the water buffaloes, the pigs and the sheep and ducks and geese and all those other things that we've had in the past. So that's all I want to say on willows for now. Please comment, let me know what you think, experiences that you've had with it, good or bad, and we'd be pleased to learn from you as well. So thanks for joining us in the far north food forest, and goodbye for now.